project. Today, I'm going to show you how to do some oil pastel shading for snowmen at night. For this project, you will need some paper. If you have colored construction paper in like a blue or a purple, that would probably work best, but you can do it on white paper too. It just will be a little bit harder, obviously, to see the white snow oil pastel. If you don't have oil pastels at home, you can also use crayons or colored pencils. For school, we're trying the oil pastels this time because they're kind of like a mix of crayons and chalk. They're really vibrant. They also allow you to kind of do some blending, which is one of the things that we're working on. Okay, you'll also need a pencil. And then if you have a white colored pencil, that will come in really handy for the snowflakes at the very end. All right, so the first step in this process, I'm gonna try to do my best to do it upside down. We'll see how I do. I'm pretty good at writing and numbers upside down, but I haven't tried drawing upside down very often. So the first thing you're gonna do, we're gonna just trace out where the snowman is going to be. So we're gonna go about halfway up our page, and that's going to kind of serve as our midpoint, and the head is going to sit right above that halfway mark. And you want the head to be about the size of a $50, or the size of this opening when you kind of do an A-OK sign with your finger. So halfway up, and I'm just gonna lightly sketch my circle. It'll probably be kind of hard to see on there, but you don't want it too dark because we're gonna be going and adding layers of oil pastel over the top of it. Then from there, we're gonna do a slightly bigger circle below it. And you're not doing a complete circle. You're kind of leading it into, that's a little better. So you're kind of leading it into that top circle. And then we're gonna do one more circle down at the bottom. And this one's gonna be the biggest one. Now, in Snowmen at Night, the book takes place at night. So all of the brightness of the snow person is because of the reflection of the moon. So in this case, our moon is over on the right-hand side. So the right-hand side of our snow person is going to be brighter than the back side, the left side. The left side is where the shadow happens. That's why we have that with all of the darker colors. The first thing we're going to do with the oil pastels is we're going to take a purple or a dark blue, and you're going to trace along the left side of your snow person. It's going to be almost halfway. The darkest line is going to be on the very edge, and it's going to kind of look like a number 3 that has an extra piece to it. It also, it's going to be about half of your snow person. I'm also going to go back and just shade a little bit more in, kind of round it out. Now in class, way back when we were working on value and we were drawing some 3-dimensional shapes, we talked about how to make a circle into a sphere shape. You want to make sure that you're following the curves of the sphere. So we want to do the same thing when we're creating each of these circles of our snow person. You want to follow the edge, follow the contour of it. Let me grab a piece of scratch paper. So when you're following the contours, and this is something that I talk to the kids about in class, I'm going to draw 2 circles here. I want you to think about which one looks more realistic as far as shading goes, and as far as trying to make it look like a 3-dimensional figure. Okay, so I've got 2 here. One of them I've just done some crisscrosses in. Call that the waffle. That's just straight up and down checkerboard. That one is flat. The one that has more like orange slices going both directions, when you draw those orange slices around the edges and even through the middle, that helps it look more 3-dimensional. So we're kind of following that same idea when we're doing this. So if we have, each of these is kind of like an orange slice, We basically colored in that the left side orange slice with our purple. The next step is going to be, I'm backing up for a second. We forgot the hat. If you don't want to make a top hat, you don't have to. You can make some other style of hat, but for mine, we're gonna follow the top hat. So on top of my top circle, I'm gonna draw a skinny rectangle. And then on top of that, I'm gonna draw a square to make the outline of my top hat. While I've still got my purple, I'm gonna go ahead and outline a little bit over half of my top hat. And that's because my top hat, I'm gonna say that my top hat is a color where the snow person is white. So my shadows are gonna be darker on this hat that is a color. Now, the other thing you'll notice is that when I am kind of shading across the hat, I'm going side to side horizontally. When I'm doing the circles, I'm going at a curved angle. That's gonna help with our shading. It's also gonna help, like with the hat, it's gonna help with the blending. All right, the second step, the next step, we're gonna get the, either if you have 3 colors of blue, you're gonna use your middle color blue. If you started with purple, you're gonna get your darker blue. And now I'm gonna go kind of over into that next orange slice. So I'm still going at a curve, but I'm gonna make one circle, not quite to the halfway, and more like a half circle. And I'm gonna let my 2 colors overlap in the middle. At this point, my blue is still pretty dark. So it fades, but it's pretty dark. And I'm following that half circle shape, kind of going back and forth. Where it overlaps, it almost creates kind of an indigo color. It's really pretty. So it should fade from your blue to a bluish purple color, and then finally to your purple on the very left. On the hat, I'm gonna go over a little bit farther. I'm still gonna let it overlap. But I'm gonna kind of finish out my outline with my dark blue so that when I put my next color of blue in, it kind of has a little bit of that shadow on it. Okay, so here it is so far. I've got my purple fading into my blue. Now I'm gonna get the light blue. And this one, just because of what I have, it's just a little bit smaller, but also it's gonna help me be a little more detailed with this one. So for this one, we're kind of getting into like the middle orange slice now, and we're also starting to get into where it's starting to fade into white. So we're gonna do the darkest light blue in the middle of the snow person. And then as we get more towards the right-hand side, we're gonna start fading it out to nothing, because then we'll come back in from the other side with the white, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna curve my line the other direction this time. Show you what I mean. So I'm starting to make that curve going the other direction now. Where I fill in the middle of those two, that's gonna be my darkest light blue. I'm still going to fade a little bit of my light blue over my dark blue. So my light blue is kind of fading out in both directions. So it's heaviest in the middle, and then it fades lighter and lighter as it goes out to the side that's going to eventually be white. So again, my darkest in the middle, kind of making kind of almost the shape of an eye, kind of a eye-shaped dark slice, orange slice in the middle, fading out to the dark blue side, and then fading over to the other side so that the white can eventually overlap it. Almost fading it to about another orange slice width. So if this was 5 orange slices wide, this one would cover the 3 middle ones. And then I'm also going to finish up my hat. And again, I'm going to switch my direction on my hat. On my hat, I'm going to go from side to side instead of going in that curved motion. The other nice thing about oil pastels is that if it's too light, or like for me, the hat, it's kind of washed some of the hat out now that I've got the light blue in there. So I'm going to go back in with my dark blue and kind of layer some of it up again to bring a little bit more of the dark blue in, because I do want my hat to look darker than my body. And you can do the same thing down through the body. And then do the same thing again with the purple if you want. Bring that purple back in. So the purple should be darkest on the left-hand edge, and then it should kind of fade over into the other blue colors. Okay, the last one, oh, we got out of the lens a little bit there. Oh, one of the hard things about oil pastels is that they're not super sharp and pointy like crayons or colored pencils. So it's a little bit harder to get fine details, but really we're going for the overall effect on this, so that's okay. Okay, so I've got my blues and purples done. Your hands are gonna get messy, it's okay, it washes off with soap and water. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start bringing in the white. So just like the purple was the darkest on the left side and then fades over, the white, it's on the side where the moon is. So it's gonna be really bright on the right side, and it's gonna gradually fade as it gets more towards the middle. So I'm gonna take my white, and my brightest white is gonna be along this edge. And I'm gonna go on the edge, but not just this outside edge. Just like our purple went in almost towards the middle, our white is gonna do the same thing. And then it's gonna fade. So it's darkest on the farthest right, and then it eventually kind of fades and blends in with the light blue. And I'm going back to that curved motion again. Got on all 3 levels of the snow person's body. And you may want to go and kind of build up that brightest white on the edge and also where the snowballs meet. Okay, so there's kind of phase 1. We've got our snowman. The next step, and this is going to sound a little weird as I explain each step to you. Our snowman is turned slightly to the side. So when you see its eyes, just like right now, you know that my eyes are about the same size, but when you're looking at them, this eye is closer to you, so it looks bigger and wider. Where this one, you may only see about half of it. So we need to keep that in mind as we're doing the arms, the nose, the eye, the pieces of the mouth. We're also going to do, outside of the black, we're also going to do kind of some two-tone colors on the arms and on the nose to kind of add that shadow effect to those things as well. So the next thing you're going to need is your brown. Let's start with the darker brown. So your darker brown of the ones I gave you is going to be the thicker one. We're going to do one arm. It's going to stick out the side of the white, because this one in real life, if there was a snowman in front of us, the arm would kind of be, the beginning of it would be back where we can't really see it. So we only see from here over, even though it actually started out kind of more in the middle of the ball. It's going to look like it's kind of sticking out of midair. You're going to go right up next to the middle of the right side of the middle snowball, and you're just going to make it stick out. And then your second arm is going to be kind of between your light blue and your dark blue orange slice in the middle as well. And that one's going to stick out. Now, if you want to make finger branches, you can add those on now. If you think you might want to add mittens instead, then I would just leave these blank and we'll add the mittens in a few minutes. So I'm going to go over my brown one more time, just thicken it up a little bit. And then the next color you're going to get is the light brown. So the light brown, again, is a little skinny one. It's kind of almost like a burnt orange color. On top of the arm, where the light hits, even in this light, you can see the top part of my arm is lighter than the underside, and that's because the light is hitting the top. So we're going to use the lighter color, and we're just going to make a thin line right on top, touching our dark line. Depending on what color your background paper is, You may see the difference or like notice the brightness more or less than others. On this one, you can't really see it, but we know it's there. While you still have your light brown, we're also going to make the underside of the nose. So we're going to go and we're going to do our nose towards the sun or towards the moon. So in the middle of kind of the light blue to the white side, you're just going to make a stick or a line out. Go over it a couple times. So we've got our light brown. Now I'm going to get my orange. Now my orange is big. It's going to be hard to be detailed. So you're going to try to find a skinny side so that instead of using this side where it's going to make a nice wide line, I'm going to turn it so I have the skinniest point of this oil pastel. And I'm going to first kind of start with my first line, but then I'm going to kind of complete a triangle. And then when I color this one in, I want my light brown to blend with my orange. So as I fill it in, I'm going to go up and down, kind of pulling some of that light brown up so that it has that shadow on the bottom side. And just like we did with other pieces, you can go back in and add some more brown in after if you can't see the shadow very well. Go back and add a little bit more brown. My brown's also smaller, so I can be a little more detailed, so it'll kind of help add those little lines underneath. Okay, so there is the nose. The next thing you're going to need is your black oil pastel. If you have a small one, that one will work better, but the big one can also work. Just do it the same way we did the other. Find an edge that's smaller so that you can kind of have a smaller piece to work with. Okay, for the eyes, again, it's going to be slightly turned. Your eye that's kind of on where the blues meet, that one's going to look bigger than the eye that's kind of back on the face. So I'm going to draw one eye to the left of my nose. I'm going to draw one eye to the right of my nose, but I'm going to understand that it's kind of fading around to the back side. So mine is not as big on the right side as the left side. Going to do the same idea with the mouth. Mouth is going to kind of fade as it goes from this side to this side. If I use 5 dots evenly spaced, you might only see 1, 2, 3, and part of 4. You know the 5th one's there, but you don't see it because it's on this side of my face. So we're going to follow that same idea as well. So 1, 2, 3. On mine, you can see about 4. But I kind of give the impression in my curved line that it's going back and that you maybe have one more on the other side. For the buttons, those are going to follow that curve too to kind of help us give that impression that ball is round. So I'm going to start a little bit closer to like right above where the arms meet, not right up above the chin, because if I want to add a scarf, you don't want it to mess up the scarf because you have those buttons. So I'm going to start my buttons down a little bit lower, and I'm going to kind of follow the same line. So I'm kind of following the line where my white is fading into my light blue, following that curve. Okay, I think that's everything with the black. The next step we're going to do, let's go ahead and add the scarf and the mittens. So choose a color. You want to choose a color that then you can kind of lighten or darken. So for mine, I'm going to choose green, kind of like I did here. I'm going to use my darker color first, and then I'm going to add my highlight on the top. So my mittens will be a little easier. For my mittens, I'm just making a line that is kind of perpendicular to my line of my arm. Perpendicular means opposite, like a T is perpendicular. Railroad is parallel. So perpendicular to my arm line, that's where I'm making the bottom of my mitten. And then I'm kind of making a St. Louis arch on top of my mitten. And then on the side closest to the face, that's where I'm going to add my thumb. So I'm just going to add another little bit out of there. So making another St. Louis arch on this side. And then adding my thumb towards the face. Now, my green's not showing up as well on my blue paper as it did on my purple paper, but once I add the highlight in, you should see it a little bit better. For the scarf, I'm going to follow that curve under that top ball and make my scarf about this wide, but I'm going to have kind of an arch shape and an arch shape on the bottom, and then two arch shapes on the sides to kind of show that that scarf is continuing to go around the neck. And then one side of my scarf is going to come down on one side of the buttons, and the other side is going to kind of come down on the other side of the buttons. I'm going to kind of have it go back behind my arm here. So it's not going to go through my arm. I'm going to kind of show that it's going behind the arm by kind of making it on both sides of the arm. So that you can see it better, I'm going to do my darker side on the same side that I did darker on everything else. So kind of on the bottom or the back side, I'm going to add a little bit of blue to kind of be the back side of my mittens. And a little blue on the back side over here. And then a little bit of blue back side over here. I'm going to do it on the back side of even these sides of the scarf. I'm going to do blue on the back side. Okay. Hopefully, when I go in with this lighter green, we'll be able to see a little bit better. On the side where my white is on everything else, I'm going to go in with my light green and start to create some lines for my scarf on the right side with those to kind of create that highlight. Once I do that, hopefully you can start to see it a little bit better. Create my knot here. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky to see. But hopefully you get the idea. Should have considered my color choice when I was doing this. So you can kind of see my scarf and my mittens. You can see that on the mittens, let's see how close I can get. There's a dark side and a light side to my mittens. The other thing we're going to add before we go down and do the snow is we're going to get our small yellow and we're going to go in and create a highlight on everything. So the tops of like the nose, the tops of the arms, the side of the hat. If the moon were shining, there would be the slightest bit of kind of a yellow glow on things. So starting with like the hat, I'm just going to put a little slight hint of yellow on the right hand side. Same thing with the nose and the sides of my scarf, the sides of my snowman, and it's not going all the way down, but just imagine that that glow is kind of hitting the top. So I'm going to also do it at the top of my mittens, maybe even a little bit on top of the arm, which will be a little bit harder to see. Top of my scarf. Okay, so now it's got a little bit of a yellow glow. Hopefully you can see that. The next thing we're going to do is the snow at the bottom. So for this, you're going to take your white oil pastel, and instead of coloring with it the traditional way, we're going to turn it on its side. And we're going to kind of pull the chalk or pull the oil pastel. We're going to start in the middle of the body and kind of pull it out to kind of give yourself a snow line. You can see that. See that it kind of creates a texture. And then you're just going to continue that line all the way down. I usually kind of use the point of the edge to go around the bottom of the snowman first, just to kind of make an outline for me. And then you're just going to go back and forth across the bottom until you have it pretty filled up. It's going to have that texture. That's what's going to make it look like snow. And then we'll go in and we'll add the shadow on top of that. So now I've got my snow texture. To do the shadow, we're going to follow kind of a similar color pattern to what we did for the snowman itself. I showed the kids in class that for a shadow around an object, the darkest part is where the object meets the surface. So if you put your hand on your palm, the darkest part is where my palm is meeting my hand. It's not that my hand is darker on this part of my hand. It's because that is where it's meeting the surface. So the shadow is the very, very darkest at that point. So the darkest part of our shadow is going to be right where the snow person is, kind of the point of the snow person is meeting the snow on the bottom. So I'm going to do another little arch kind of shape. I don't want it to be huge. It's going to be an arch coming off of the side of the snowman. And I'm going to push in the direction of my shadow. So I'm not doing curved lines this time. My initial line was curved, but these lines are just going to be going in the direction of my shadow. And I'm starting off with kind of a light purple, but then I'm going to go back over it. I'm going to darken my purple a little bit as I get closer to the edge. Getting it started. Then over the top of that purple, just right along the edge of the snowman, and not on the snowman side, but instead on the shadow side, you're going to make a very kind of light line using your black oil pastel, kind of overlapping the purple just to make that darkest dark. You don't want to make big, long lines. You want to be really small and intentional. And then I'm going to go back over that again with the purple so that it kind of blend and just create a dark, dark, dark purple there. Even though my lines aren't curving, the length of my line is kind of curving. So I'm starting off with like some short lines, and then they're getting a little bit longer where the longest part of my curve is. And then they get a little shorter as I get back closer to the side again. I'm going to do the same thing with some blue. And my blue is going to be more in the middle. So it's kind of overlapping. It's overlapping some of the black. It's definitely overlapping the purple. And then I'm going to come in very lightly with my light blue. And my light blue is really just going to overlap the dark blue, and it's going to go a little bit into the white. Okay, so there's the shadow. You may want to go in and blend a little bit with your fingertip. Just to soften it up. Don't blend on the snowman side. Try to blend more on the outside of the snowman. And kind of, when you blend, you're just pulling the colors together and kind of making it blurry almost. I'm blending all of the dark first, and then I'm going to kind of let my blending fade out as well. Because then it can even fade into some of the snow texture and kind of blur that a little bit. Okay, so just adding that little bit of blending made a big difference too. Okay, the last thing we're going to add together, I realize this is a super long video. The last thing we're going to do together are the snowflakes. We're going to do 3 types of snowflakes. Snowflakes are super hard to draw, but this is a hack. So when you draw a snowflake, you are going to draw a multiplication sign or an X, and then you're going to cross the same middle spot and make a plus sign. To make all of the little details on the side of your snowflake, we're going to use little tiny V's. So on every other one, for this one, I'm going to use 2 of these. And then on the opposite ones, I maybe will just do 1 bead. Another thing I do is I add little circles to the ends because it seems like I can never get them to cross quite right in the middle. So sometimes by adding the little circles, it just makes your snowflake pop a little more. In art, we like to do things in odd numbers. So I'm going to make 3 kind of sporadic snowflakes at that bigger size. When you do them the bigger size, that just would mean that they are closer to you. It would give us the impression that these are closer up to us. And then we're going to make a couple of other sizes too that'll be a little bit easier to make. Add my circles again. You don't have to add the circles. If you want to try some with these and you want to do some with just lines, that works too. Always good to have a lot of variety. So I'm making even my bigger snowflakes, I'm making them in different sizes. Lines on this one instead. I'm going to keep my circles going because it just helps make mine look better since I don't ever keep them lined up. Okay, so there's my 3 detailed close-up snowflakes. Some medium snowflakes, I'm just going to make some little open circles. I'm going to scatter those all over the place. Some of those will be bigger, some of those will be smaller. Those are our medium snowflakes. And then our smallest snowflakes are just going to be a small filled-in dot. Those in a few spots. Okay, so there it is. There is my snowman at night. Now, if you wanted to go back in and add anything like a moon, just try to follow the same pattern that we did. Keep all of the light on any of the objects that are on this side of the moon. Keep them with the brightest part to the right and the darkest part to the left. If you make the moon, it's going to follow the opposite pattern. You want the 2 bright sides to face each other. So just like it does here, the bright side of my moon is actually on the left because it's facing and what is making the snowman be bright on the right, if that makes sense. All right, when you are finished, there are 2 places to put this one. One place is in your portfolio like always. The second spot is on the Schoology page, and there is a link that says Snowman Dropbox or Snowman, put your picture here, something like that. I want everybody's snow people in the same spot because I'm going to put all of those into a video so that everyone can see everyone else's, because the kids at school did such an amazing job on this that I think it's worth showing them off, and I want to see yours too. Have a great day, guys. If you have questions or if you need materials, please, please, please don't hesitate to send me a message. See you later.